Hey everybody, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Happy Monday if you're in Australia. I'm back. Sorry I had a 2-week break. The first week I was sick, and then the second week I was moving house. And as you can see, I'm in a new place. I built myself a studio in the backyard of the new house that I'm in, and this is it. It's a little soundproof box, but it's good. It's working well. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Hey Ash, how's it going? Thanks for joining me. Today I was having a bit of a think. I wasn't really sure what to do, but last night I bought a pack, assets and house tours. That's right. I'm good, Audrey. Thank you. How are you? I've missed you guys. It feels like ages. I feel really bad for missing so many weeks. I feel bad missing 1 week, let alone 2. But hopefully we won't have any more interruptions. So yeah, I wasn't really sure what to do this week. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad. But last night I bought a Kitbash pack that I've been looking at for a while. Now we're having a sale, so I bought it. Let me open it up. So here's the pack in Houdini, but I'll show you guys the pack on their website. And you know, just to be clear, I'm no way affiliated with Kitbash, and you know, I'm not being sponsored to say this or anything, but I like their packs, and I think you can have a lot of fun with them in Houdini. So this is the one that I bought. It's a props pack, and that's the full price, but the sale price was $39, so how could I say no? So you can see, you know, there's lots of cool stuff here, lots of cloth and lots of food, you know, lots of bits and pieces that I think could be really fun to play with in Houdini. Lots of wood, you know, so if you wanted to set something on fire, lots of stuff to set on fire. Lots of stone to break, tiles, although that's probably just a texture, so there wouldn't be individual tiles, which you know, would be better, and we could create that if we wanted to. But yeah, lots of potential, I think, for having a lot of fun in Houdini. I really like the look of the cloth, and I think we think. I was reading the comments. We missed you too. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think the cloth, yeah, it could be really fun to play with vellum. I think that could be really interesting. So, yeah, you know, if you're not familiar with Kitbash, go and have a look at them, because they can be really cool. Even if you're not, you know, into Houdini so much, you know, you can see here they're being used to create artwork, which is cool. So that's what I got, and I've just been having a bit of a look at it this morning, just to see. Cool to see a hurricane blow off this. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be great. Be great to, you know, you could do a lot of really cool destruction stuff. Hey Tyson, how's it going? Thanks for joining me. It'd be cool to do a lot of sort of destruction stuff. I had a bit of an idea of what we could try, just sort of try out these assets. They're not straightforward to work with in Houdini, certainly for destruction. You can see they're clipping, because of the scale. They're clipping pretty hard. Let me try and see if I can reframe this so it doesn't clip. There we go. So it looks like a pizza oven or something. Bread oven. They all have textures as well, which is cool, but they don't display in the viewport. I'm not sure why exactly. Yeah, it's good. Thanks, Tyson. This is it. There's not much to it. I'll see if I can turn the camera around. On this side, there's a wall, and then on this side, there's a storage unit, like a little shelf, and there's a door. And outside that door is my shed. So I've built this little studio inside my shed. So it's about, I don't know if you guys know meters, depending on where you are in the world. It's about 2.4 meters square. So it's not huge, but it's big enough. You know, it's plenty of room for a desk and my guitar and amps and stuff. And it's pretty soundproof as well, which is great. That was a big part of, you know, what I wanted was to be able to make a lot of noise in here with the guitars and not have it, you know, annoy the neighbors, but also to have a nice, quiet, soundproof room for recording and streaming and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. Built it with my dad. It's a bit of fun. Putting the roof up was interesting. That was the way we did it. Was a little bit silly, I think. Trying to like push up these insulated roof panels that were quite heavy. So I'm going to try and choose one that looks like it would be interesting, and I think one of these like cloth ones would be cool. But so the other idea that I had with this, just to kind of, you know, have a bit of fun and mess around, was I've got these animals, this animal pack from True Bones, it's called. Let me find it. So I'm going to bring in an FBX, and then under my assets, I've got this True Bones Zoo. You look that up, you'll be able to find them. And I was looking for a bull, because I thought a bull charging through would be really cool, you know, tearing up stuff. But I don't have a bull. I've got lots of stuff. You know, an elephant actually might be kind of cool, but I have this buffalo, which is kind of, I guess, as close to a bull as what I'm going to get here. And if you have a look at like attack, for example, we go and have a look at that buffalo. There it is. Then, you know, he's going to do things like that. We've got the run cycle as well here. We've got run loop. So we could just have him like running through, or we could have a whole bunch of them running through, which might be interesting, you know. Just have them tearing up the market. Buffalo's gone wild. So I thought that might be kind of cool. We've got, you know, like jumping. Yeah, something like that might be interesting. So we could have a whole bunch of them around, maybe sort of tearing stuff up. So yeah, I thought that might be a fun kind of thing to you know, play with. Let's just leave him there, and we'll try and decide on, you know, on an asset. There's all sorts. There's just like this brick one, which I was rendering out just before. Oh, maybe it's gone. I reset this so that you guys will see me do it from scratch. But I was just having a look around, rendering them, having a look at their textures just to see what they look like. So these do have materials. If I put a camera here, for example, and let's just chuck an environment light in the scene. Environment map, I'll just grab one of these ones. They're not great HDRIs, but will do the job. And I'm going to put a grid down just for a ground plane. I'll just make a large grid. Okay. Yeah, let's have a look at that. Render. Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be really fun, you know, just to see, just to put one in there, have him running, or a few of them like running and crossing over, and just seeing what happens, you know. I think it would be really cool. It's always the fun thing of RBDs, rigid body destruction, when you've set something up well, anything you put in there basically it's going to look good, you know, as long as you put the work into setting stuff up to break correctly and look good when it breaks, and have constraints in there. So that'll be a large part of, you know, what I'll be doing as well. Oh, there we go. The render did pop up of the old one, but here you go. You can see it here. So there's like, even inside here, there's like tables and chairs and food on the table. So that one could be kind of cool, but it doesn't have, there's a little bit of cloth here, but I think one of those tent type ones might be a bit more interesting. So let's have a look. Let's see. We've got to delete a lot of them because it's very heavy at the moment. It takes, you can see how long it takes, like, just to load all of these things. I kind of like, you know, like some of these ones. Maybe this one might be interesting. Or even this one, you know, is kind of cool. There's a large amount of cloth there and some barrels. And this one, yeah, these like bread stalls are kind of cool as well. This one, food, meat. Let's have a look at that. Let's check that one out. New camera. So you can see all the materials and textures are already set up, so you don't have to do anything with that. even though I'm studying environment for games, I love seeing VFX looks. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, these, you know, these assets are so light. You know, they're not heavy assets, so these are, you know, these are useful in games as well. So you can totally use this stuff to create environments for games, or for film they're a little bit on the low side in detail. But I was just having a look before. Oops, let me change camera. I was just having a bit of a look before, because it doesn't look like these have 3D displacement on them, which would make them look a bit more detailed and a bit more realistic, less game resi. But it doesn't look like that's hooked up on the shader by default, which is a bit annoying. But I'll be able to hopefully figure that out, because it looks like they do have height maps. I think at the moment I've just got normal maps from the shaders, the way they're set up. But we should be able to get some height maps going, hopefully. And that'll make it a little bit more detailed. So let's have a look at this one. This is one of the stalls. Render's going a bit slow. Let's just speed this up. Take the pixel samples down. Half res. Let's try that. Go a little bit faster. There we go. So what do we got there? We got some meat hanging there. I noticed this as well. The cloth is quite sparkly. Like it's got, you can see all these little dots. I think it probably has like subsurface or something maybe that's making it look like that. But you can see they all have textures, which is cool. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit boring. Not enough going on. A way to check like material properties in a render like this would be to go to your images, extra image planes, and just add a like a combined lighting per component. And you can see here it ticks on export variable for each component. And when you have a look up here on the like the image plane drop down, by default usually we just have C, but now I can see diffuse, reflect, coat, refract, volume, SSS. So you can have a look at the individual components, and weirdly it's showing all black in the diffuse. So let's check out the reflect. It's kind of a bit strange. I would have expected to see something in the diffuse, but maybe we've got a lot of SSS or not. No, weird. I don't know what's going on there. So I would have expected to see a lot of color in the diffuse, but I'm not. So I'm not sure what the deal is there. Let's try just direct lighting instead of combined. Bizarre. Diffuse, reflect, comp, fract, SSS. Getting nothing. Well, that ain't working. I don't know why. That's kind of weird. But maybe we should try it when we split them out. Might start working. That should work. I don't know why it's not. Alright, so yeah, let's choose something else. I think this one might be fun. I think this one might be a bit of fun. So let's isolate that for starters. We can always come back and change our mind. Now this is the kind of hard thing with working with this stuff. It's like there's a lot of assets here. You can see, you know, it's just all like this. So we have to work out first what this is. And the easiest way to do that is to select it. So I'm going to put my view flag down here on the merge. Weight, because it's super heavy. And then I'm going to just select one of these primitives. Oh, there we go. You can see that it's... Ah, damn. There we go. So maybe select a bigger one. And then if I look at my geometry spreadsheet, or actually I've got one down here. I'll split my panes so that I've got one down here. You can see I've got only show selected turned on. And it tells me, well, it tells me what material I've got there, but let's see what other... See if I've got a path attribute here. I don't. Group. Let's see if any of these groups have a value. Wow. Look at all those groups. What have we got here? Group delete. What's going on with this? Hey, Mimo El Mimo. How you going? Let's see. Have a look on the group delete. Maybe that will remove the groups that don't have anything. So what I'm hoping to see here is like a 1 in one of these groups. Doesn't look like... Oh, there's one. I just saw it there. Look at that. 1, 1, 1. So, let's see. See if I can drag this out. What I want to extract from this is what this is. Oh, where is it? There. Barrel mate. Well, that's not handy. Yeah, this is the tricky thing. And maybe we just need to kind of blast it away. Or, you know, I'll just go through and hopefully clicking on each one of these things will show me. So you can see, you know, when I look at each transform, I can see each kind of one of these things. Now, it's a little bit tedious, but, you know, maybe it's a little bit faster than me just kind of going through the attributes like that. Let's just see how quickly we can go through. You can see they're all next to each other, so maybe I'll arrive at it eventually. This is the only issue with this stuff, just like, yeah, it's a little bit hard to kind of isolate particular assets. Unless there's an easier way that I'm not aware of, which is possible. This is going to be a long stream. Come on, maybe I'll just skip a bunch of this stuff because it looks like we're all down at the bottom here. Barrels, nothing but barrels. Come on. Oh, there we go. Hey, look at that. Okay, now we're getting into the buildings. What are the chances that I skipped the important one that I needed? Almost. I mean, this is the first time I've looked at this pack, so once you become familiar with what's in there, it kind of, you know, becomes a little bit easier, but... Ah, back in the barrels again. Fun stuff, eh? This is the exciting side of VFX. Clicking through assets. You know, I could probably come up with some system for filtering these, but I find, you know, sometimes, and maybe, you know, maybe I will at some point, but sometimes it is just easier to do this kind of brute force method of just going through things, you know, manually. And it might take you a little while, but maybe it'll take you less time than trying to build some elaborate system. God, so annoying. Hey, back in the buildings. There we go. What do we got there? You can see how detailed the cloth are. The cloth parts are really detailed because I guess they've been generated from a sim already, and to get that level of detail increasing, they have been generated with a significant amount of detail. Ah, success! Of course, it was transform 114. So what I'm going to do now is put a null down and say out, I don't know, anything, market, store. Thank God that's over. So I'm going to hide that medieval marketplace now, because we don't want to see that stuff and we don't want it to load. And now I'm going to call this market stall. And then object merge. From there, out market stall. That's the good thing about nulls, is they go up the top. Accept. And then you can see that this is kind of not around world 0, which is okay, but you know, when you're first starting with an asset, sometimes it's good to just put that back at the world. So I'm going to move Centro to origin. There we go. And that will just move it to the center, and basically you can just negate the Y, just put 0 in there, and then it's sitting on the ground plane. So when I have a look at my sort of front view, it's all sitting on the ground. So now we've got our asset that we wanted at world 0. And let's have a look at the res. So we've got 444,000 polygons, 15 unique shop material paths. And if we isolate the cloth, that's interesting, it's in sections. It's not great. I thought it would all be in one piece, but I guess it's been like stitched together, maybe that's why. But you can just kind of go through holding shift and clicking out that stuff. The other thing you could try is selecting based on a spread angle of the normals, and you can see when I do that, let's set it to 90, 180, sometimes, not always, sometimes that can select more when you do that. But you can see how it's like when I'm selecting there, it's selecting, instead of selecting individual faces, it's actually selecting big sections. So yeah, you can try using that sometimes, but it doesn't really seem to be working. Oh, let's try this. This is getting a little more. The other thing you could do is have a look when you select this. Only show selected is on here. And let's hide group. And you could maybe select by the material as well. So you could potentially do maybe a group based on the shop material path. So let's try that. Let's put a split down. And we saw that that was like fabric A or something. So let's say at shop underscore material path equals star fabric, oops, fabric star. Hey, look at that. And so we got all the fabric there. You can see there's like little fabric lids for, I don't know what those are, little pots, little fabric lids. So that's cool. We've isolated all the fabric, and that's great, because then we can just send that into vellum. We could probably isolate this one separately to the others. But that's great. So on one side, we've got fabric, and I'll probably, let's have a look. We've got like all these groups. Let's group delete. Hey Klaus, hey Tom, thanks. It's good to be back. Sorry I was away for so long. Group delete. Let's delete unused groups. So we get rid of, you know, you can see before that there was, oh, I was seeing some 0 groups and now they're gone. I don't know why, but it's good to put a group delete down just in case. So you can see there are actually a whole bunch of groups here that we could potentially use. There is actually a fabric A group there. Let's suppose that there wasn't. We can use this shop material path as well. And we should see here. So now there's our 0 groups. Let's put the group delete after that. So there we go. Now we've got fabric B, fabric A, some parts groups, some main groups, some crates groups. So yeah, it gets pretty convoluted with all the groups, but at least we've got some groups there. So let's go out fabric on there. And then on the other side of the split, we've got everything else. So there's our frame. Let's check out the group delete on that side too. And let's check out what we've got here. So we've got main, we've got parts, iron, wood. Let's have a look at wood in a split again. This is the tedious part of setting up for rigid body destruction, but, and just in general, but it's important. And when you do it once, and then you could apply this to every asset that you want to pull in. So look, there's all of our wooden components. Our wood. Let's check out the other side now. Okay, so we've got, look, we've got like little nails. I don't know if you guys can hear that, it's raining. There is actually a small hole in my, well, it's quite large above my door where I'm going to put an air conditioner. So it's letting in sound, which is annoying, but hopefully it's not too loud. So what do we got here? It looks like we've got some wind chimes, some buckets. So these are all the metal components. And it's great to be able to split this out because, when you're doing destruction, you want different materials to behave in different ways. So we don't want metal to, shatter like wood. We want it to maybe bend, so we can send it to a different process. Let's get our wood on one side. We've got our metal now. There's probably some other things there as well. Let's check out the groups. Flips him in real life, that's right. Hopefully it doesn't stop pouring through the ceiling. I think it's watertight in here. Let's have a look. Rope I want to isolate, because that one is going to be vellum, really. So let's check it out. Let's go split, and I'm going to isolate this one. Okay, what am I going to do? Rope. There we go. We'll just use the group this time. So there's all our ropes. So let's just take that, we'll rename it. This one could be out rope. So it's important to put all these names down because later on, I want to use these to access them. So what have we got here after the split? And we've got a whole bunch of stuff here. You can see now the rope group is, wow, it's super loud. You can see the rope group is empty now. So again, group delete might be useful. Wow, can you guys hear that? I think it's hailing. Turn my mic down. It's not in the lens. Well, let me check. No, they're actual VGO files. So when I downloaded this, you have the option to choose format. So if I choose Houdini, the render option is native. So it actually gives me VGO files as the import, and it gives me shaders set up for Mantra, which is the native renderer. So yeah, I don't know if you choose a different one. I'm not sure. This is the folder that that it came with, and you can see that it is just VGO files. So I don't actually have Alembics there. You could export Alembics from here. All right. So let's keep going. What have we got left? We've got, it's annoying because you've got these groups that show up, barrels. These are part of the barrels group. I guess it's good to have them, but a lot of this stuff is, is actually metal, although it looks like some ceramic things in here as well. So let's go again, split. Let's see how many, oops, get rid of that. See, we've got 9 different shop materials in here now. So there's obviously 9 different sort of things in there. Have a look at the geometry spreadsheet again. Turn off only show selected and have a look at what materials we've got. So we've got iron, wicker, iron again, silver, ceramic A and B, wicker, rock, copper. So lots of different types of metal. Bread. Maybe is that bread? Let's see. Only show selected. No, that's a rock. Oh, here's the bread. So again, we could use the shop material path. So at shop underscore material path equals star bread star. Okay, so there's our bread. Our bread. And then what have we got? Let's do wicker. There we go. Wicker baskets out. Guess let's call that baskets. And what have we got here? Unfortunately, the metal is not all in the same group. But what we could do is put a split down, and then we could just pick the various metal groups. So we could pick, what have we got? We've got copper there, we've got iron, looks like the iron one's quite big, and we could pick silver. So they're then all the metal groups showing up there, so out metal. And let's chuck another group delete down, there, and there. Okay, so on this, on this side, we're going to see what we have left. And looks like they're all the ceramic ones and the rocks as well. So let's go split. This should be the last one that we need to do, and we'll just choose rock. Out rocks. It's tedious, but you know, it's worth doing. And then out ceramic. Alright. And it is worth cleaning up the groups because it makes it, you know, less heavy. It's getting rid of data, so it makes it slightly more efficient. Alright. So there you go. You can see we've got a whole bunch of different things going on there. Out fabric over here, that can go off to our vellum setup. Out wood, here we'll probably need to break this down a little more. So let's have a look at our frame here. So you can see when I don't have anything selected, nothing's showing up because I've got only show selected on. And then when I choose that, it shows me what that is. So that's wood A, and you can see when I choose the barrel, wood B, wood A, so there's a lot of wood A and wood B. Let's split those into two different categories. So at shop underscore material path equals star wood A star. Well, that's interesting. Half the barrel has come out. Let's try that again. Wood B. Oh, good. We've got a mixture of woods on the barrel. Well, that's and a mixture of woods on the. Okay, so that one's not that useful. Let's see what else we can use. Wood A. What groups have we got here? Let's group delete. So we've got barrels, crates, main, maybe. Let's try splitting main. Main. Hey, there we go. Look at that. Okay, so out frame. Yeah, maybe that's a good point, Klaus, selecting UVs. Although you might get a little hard to isolate like that because they're all overlapping. But yeah. I mean, the groups, yeah, the groups should be pretty good. So, like here, you know, I could then split maybe based on barrels. There we go. So there's that barrels. out. Barrels. What have we got over this side? Oh, you. Why are you not in a barrel group? Grr. That stuff does get annoying when, you know, when you're trying to use the groups to isolate things. Let's go crates A. Crates B. Crates C. So this can be out crates. What have we got left over here? Alright, so there's some little bits and pieces there. Let's see what happens when I just run this through a rigid body solver. Rbd bullet solver, just the SOP based one. I'm just going to plug these in here. Turn on ground plane. I just want to see what happens. Ah, cool. Look at that barrel. Awesome. And the table kind of breaks in two. Wicked. So, you know, that stuff could, you know, potentially just do that. And that would be okay. In fact, a lot of these things, you know, may not require fracturing. These things are great, these Rbd bullet solvers. They're really good for testing assets. And you can see, like, the way that these things have been modeled is actually really kind of cool for Rbd destruction, because they've been modeled in individual parts. So even nothing exploded. That's right. It's always a good start. You play on there, you know, all that stuff. It's great. Barrels. The barrels look really cool, just spreading out like that. You know, this stuff less so, because I mean the metal will certainly just fall down and look cool. But you know, some of the other things will probably need to be fractured. But the wood, you know, maybe not. Alright. Comes the rain again. Rope. This is going to go over to vellum land, I think. Let's, over here. Actually, what I'm going to do... yeah, I do like to keep all this stuff in one... well, here comes the rain. I do like to keep all this stuff in one object, but it does make sense to have like a object prep node and then a simulation, or like a constraints and simulation node. So geometry, out. What do I want to do? I'm going to call this like constraint and sim in here. And then we can object merge in all of the various parts. So, if we have a look, here's our market stall. And then we can just bring them in one by one. So, you know, maybe we'll start with the fabric, like that. And I'll also bring in the rope. So, there we go. There's two things. Then we can start setting these up. Maybe I'll also bring in the frame, for starters, so that I have, you know, something to attach those bits of fabric to. Might be useful. So here's our fabric. Let's run that through a vellum configure cloth. It's pretty heavy for a, you know, for a cloth sim. This one, it's 235 polys, are pretty high res. Oh, it looks like there's like little patches and things going on there. Two little bits draping over each other. So I wonder what this will look like. Let's do a vellum cloth, and then we'll just put down a vellum, SOP-based vellum solver. Hey Vizal, I think that's right. The learning curve of Houdini is greater than that of Nuke. Yes, I would agree. I mean, there are certainly very complex areas of Nuke as well, but yeah, I mean, generally, in terms of learning software, it is much easier to get into compositing than it is Houdini. Not that it's impossible, like Houdini, you know, is you're able to learn it. It just does take time, and it takes practice to really master. They're two very different softwares, though, and you know, very different kind of methods. So it's sort of, you know, you want to kind of choose which one you want to get into, whether you want to do compositing or the more 3D side of things. I'm going to remesh this because it's very heavy. So I'm going to just put a remesh down, set the target size to 0.5. Okay, yeah, definitely. Maybe 0.5 is a little low. Let's try 0.25. I mean, you can see it's pretty low res, but we just want to kind of see something happening. You can see a bit of collision happening here with the frame, which is interesting. Womp womp womp. It's all in different pieces, so maybe we should either fuse the geometry together before we put it in the sim, or we put a vellum constraints down. We don't want that, but we're just going to do like a glue or stitch points. So let's try glue. So there you go. The glue, you can see, is creating constraints between all those disconnected sections, and even those little flaps that are kind of sitting on top are being glued to the main structure. So yeah, I don't know. Well, there's a lot of points along that edge. Let's take a look at this. Not great. Oh well. See what happens with the glue in there. I'll run that frame down there like that. So the cloth should stay together at least. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird that that the frame is kind of poking through. I don't know what's going there. I mean, I guess the remesh has kind of destroyed some of that. Fuse points to clean topo. Yeah, good idea. No, don't be sorry for asking questions. That's what I'm here for. How long did I learn Houdini? Well, I mean, I'm still learning every day. You never stop learning because Houdini never stops changing. And there's always new techniques to learn. But look, when I first learned Houdini, I was already working in the industry, and I had been for, almost, I don't know, 8 years or something. So it wasn't like I was completely new to VFX. But I spent basically, I mean, I was learning it in little bits and pieces, but I wasn't really dedicated. But when I moved to London, I had to learn it to get a job, essentially. I spent about 6 months, full time, 9 to 5, like a job, because I didn't have a job. But I had planned that. I had planned to take that time. So yeah, I spent a good 6 months, 9 to 5 every day, just working at it, and that was enough to, make me feel like I could use it at work. But it's still, I was still very green to Houdini when I actually started working. Look, it takes a really long time to master it. It takes time and practice, and everyone can kind of get there with it, but you really need to stick with it and keep pushing. You can't just expect that you will become proficient in it and master it and not put in the time. But mastery as well, like it's much easier to kind of put in the time using the software at work, when you're working in it every day, you know, then I'm using it 9 to 5 every day and beyond. So, you know, I can really put in the time. And that's why I say it's all about practice, because, you know, the more that I do things on every film that I work on, every project that I work on, it's just teaching me more and more techniques or different ways of approaching things, and learning from different people. You know, you just pick up little tricks here and there. So yeah, but look, it's a lot of it is just practice. You can't just watch tutorials over and over and, you know, expect to be a master at it. You have to actually put that to one side, don't watch them, and try and do it for yourself and put into practice the things that you've been shown. So, you know, it's, yeah, it takes a lot of time, but it's not impossible. So let's remove unused points. Use net points. Yeah, I guess that kind of worked. Is that what you meant, Klaus? Just fusing them together? Or is there some button where I can remove the ones that are in line? Can't really remember. I guess that one isn't really doing anything. Let's see. 5,996. Yeah, I guess we're getting some like slightly degenerate stuff happening down here that might not be great. The other thing that I might do is, like, because we've got this intersection happening here, which is kind of weird. Let's check this out. Yeah, you can see that kind of overlap that's happening. It's possibly being caused by the remesh, just taking that, yeah, taking that res down. It is definitely on that area. So what I might do is put a peak in, push that stuff out slightly, although that pulls them apart from their edges. So let's do that after the fuse. See if that works. So we've got our fuse, we've got our peak, and let's see if that has made it any better. Well, looks a bit like a dog's breakfast, but let's have a look and see if this works any better with the collision. So my viewport's broken. Control T. Oh, you know what? That's why. No, it's not broken. Mistake. Try that again. Wacky shack. It's blowing in the wind. So it might be worth creating some constraints to the frame as well, and then, you know, hopefully it won't blow around as much. And we could do it like this: plug the constraint in there, or the collision in there, and then we might get a glue happening to the frame as well. Although we might need to create a different one for that. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like it worked. Let's check out this glue. So I'm seeing a little bit of glue there connecting those two there. Let's put a attached to geometry down. Go on attached to geometry. That might work. There we go. So now you can see we're getting constraints to the frame. They're too big. You can see the distance there. We don't really want that kind of stuff happening. So let's take that distance. We'll set max distance, and we'll just set it to a small number so that we're not getting like massive searching for things that are far away. Okay, well, let's try that. Sop Solver. It's pretty low res now as well, so, you know, this is just for testing, just to get quick stuff going on. floppy. And I could always turn off the remesh and just let it run like this. It won't be quick, but it may look better at this resolution. Let's have a look. Although a bit more intersection happening. It'll be slow. But you can see, like, you get lots of nice detail at this res. A little bit of tearing happening. Look at those wrinkles. Let's get remesh. So one thing we could do with this is like turn off gravity essentially, so it doesn't really move, or even, you know, we could set this to like be deactivated until the buffalo starts running through it. So, you know, it's potential to kind of control this stuff a little, you know, before we need it to really, you know, do its thing. Let's put that peak back on. Wow, it's a peak so awful. Facet down, pre-compute. Yikes. No peak. Let's try that. Be a bit faster. Super floppy as well, so, you know, probably just... that's actually working pretty good, so let's just attach the change the cloth. We'll just go up on the stiffness, dampening ratio up, bend stiffness up. Let's try that. I find vellum in general is quite difficult to create, like super stiff cloth. It always seems quite floppy, but that's not too bad. You can see it's a bit drapey here, but it's, yeah, it's a little bit more canvassy. Let's see if we can put a ground plane down. I can't remember. Oh, there we go, ground position. Let's chuck that down. And then that stuff's just going to sit on the ground. Alright. I don't know what's going on with this one. This one's going for a walk. Those ones potentially don't need to be vellum. Like, they're pretty small and inconsequential, so, you know, it's kind of like, is that really worth running through vellum? Probably not going to see it, unless we do like a super close-up slow-mo of that little bit of vellum. These ones over here are on some kind of stand, so they probably would want to be simmed separately, or at least bring the stand in as the collider. Let's check out the ropes. The ropes, I think, maybe also not ideal to do as vellum, because they're kind of creating this tension, and maybe we want to do that in some other way. I don't know. We can bring them in and see. Let's check out their sort of geometry. So it looks like they're just... These long tubes don't have any subdivisions. Which is kind of crap. Let's just plug it in and see what we get. Vellum cloth. Let's run a different one in here. And see if I can merge these together into the one sim. I don't know. Need to merge everything except that. Let's try this. See what happens with these ones. I suspect that they're just maybe, yeah, trying to do like a weird thing where they collapse those ones that don't have any subdivisions. But at least they're staying taut. It's kind of good. You can kind of see how... Let's hide upper. Okay. You can kind of see how those ones... They're at least staying connected, which is good, but yeah, they don't have like anything to keep them together there. They may be like splitting as well, I don't know. You can see these bits are kind of going all floppy. Yeah, I don't know if it's worth doing those as sims or not. Let's look at these. These ones too are also don't have any subdivisions. So we could remesh them, the whole thing, and just, you know, that will help. Let's go 0.05. They're pretty thin, so you need decent resolution. Maybe? Let's see what that looks like. You should see these go a little bit floppy now. Not really what we want for these ropes because they're meant to be under tension. Yeah, I agree. Wire solver better. Also, you know, not necessarily. Like you could do RBDs for the ropes. That can work pretty well. You could create like a chain of RBDs to simulate ropes. Might work well, but yeah, wire solver probably still is better for really thin things like this. Or we could try and create like a wire simulation with vellum as well. But yeah, I am with you on that one. I just don't like, you know, it's just nice to use the wrapped up vellum solver. It makes it kind of nice and easy. Before we go too far with this, let's get our buffalo and let's get him running through. We'll just do a simple one with the run. So, got him on a loop. I'm going to run that through a transform. And I ain't no animator, so I'm just going to... I'm going to rotate him around. And I'm just going to translate him through space. So, I'm going to start... let's see. So, first thing I'm going to do is put an offset in, so choose where he's going to be kind of coming from. So like over here maybe, let's just go 10. And then I'm going to put another transform down, which is going to do the animation. So in this one, you can see I need him running in the negative X direction, so I'm going to do $F times minus something, and the value is going to be the rate at which he's running. So -1, he's going to run at the frame, you know, he's going to move basically a meter every frame, because, you know, this is the frame number, but it's also, in this context, it's also meters. So, and you can see by multiplying it by negative, it's generating a negative value. But that's pretty quick. He's really going fast there. So let's do times -0.25. That's probably still too quick based on his kind of his motion here. Let me just hide the constraint and sim. We'll just have a look at the market stall. So kind of, yeah. So you can see like he's sliding a lot when he lands there. He's sliding heaps. So let's go down even more, 10th. There we go, that's a little bit better. So you want to, basically, when those foot plants hit, you want to see very little sliding. So you can see there's still a little bit of sliding there, but it's certainly, whoa, let's turn on real time. And it's kind of slow-mo. His run is a little bit kind of slow feeling anyway. But that's not too bad. You know, you could potentially go even lower on that. pretty slow-mo, isn't it? So you could try then, after you've got that foot planting right, put a time shift down, turn off integer, do $FF, and then just multiply it up and see, you know, then you can actually speed it up. The whole thing that you've just set up there, including the animation of the bull, but you're doing it together with the... There we go. So that looks a little better. What do you think? It's a stampede! Alright. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it looks good. So let's go out. Buffalo. I wish it was a bull. It would be easy to type. Unpack. As you can see. Yeah, should be good. You can see packed agents 1. So I've got to unpack that. Because I'm going to use him as a collider. And it's also a poly soup, so I'm going to put down a convert. There we go. 6,000 polygons. While I'm at it, you get a whole bunch of attributes and stuff that you don't really want coming out of the FBX. So let's get rid of the agent shape name. We want the UVs. Let's get rid of the bone capture. So we've got alpha, CD, NP, and UVs in vertex. There we go. Yep. Should be good. Okay, out Buffalo. Let's bring him into the constraint and sim. And go and grab him. There he is. Now, he's moving. We want him to collide properly, so we're going to put a trail down to compute velocity. So that's going to generate a V attribute. I'm just going to transfer onto the cloth and the rigid body sims to give us the correct collisions. Let's just plug him in with our colliders here. So merge him in here with our building. Oops. And see what happens with that. So this is just one, you know, animation cycle, but we could, you know, we could combine a whole bunch together to create, you know, a really unique performance. Because he's gonna tear through this stuff and then get kind of covered in the cloth. And I mean, we want some tearing or something to happen, of course, because this is just gonna look a bit weird. But you know, you could have him like stop in the middle of the market stall, and then I don't know if we have an animation where he's kind of like shaking his head, but you could try and do that or get him to do some other motion. Hey, Jono3D. So yeah, you can see it's working. I mean, obviously there's a problem, whereas we're getting this, you know, super stretchy stuff happening. But yeah, it's cool. It's the first step. And you can see at a certain point, it looks like this disconnects and starts to snap back. So what we want to do there is probably create some fracturing, or we do take the fuse off, which is fusing those different components together, and we rely on the glue, which is holding the components together, to break. And that might work. So let's have a look at that. Hopefully everything doesn't just fall apart. We might need to play with that breaking threshold. Because you don't want things to break, you know, under their own weight or under their own tension. It looks like they're holding together, which is good. Hopefully now we'll see him just tear off one of these panels, the side panels. There you go. You can see it snapping there. You can see how... maybe. I think that's what I'm seeing. It's hard to tell. Yeah. See that? So he has actually broken some, although, you know, there's a little bit of... looks like a a movie now. So it looks like there's some of those constraints still maybe being attached. So let's just change that threshold. It could be the... I don't think it's the attachment constraint. Look at these attachment constraints. There's a lot there. So maybe we'll take that distance down. Probably don't need quite so many there. Let's look at the glue. So here's our glue along there. Constraints per point. Search distance. Take that down. Maybe. Maybe not. Stiffness, breaking threshold. Let's take the threshold down. Yeah, so I definitely need to get rid of some of these things from this sim. The rope, you know, we can do separately. But here's the problem. When you take the break threshold down too much, I mean, there's some crazy connected stuff going on here. You know, that actually might be being caused by the remesh crossing over some points that shouldn't be crossed over. Or like connecting up some points that shouldn't be connected. Let's take a look. So we've got our remesh, and then if I double click on this panel, they're not connected. Cloth. Perhaps. Oh, I don't know. Let's try it without the glue and see if that. See if they fall apart without without doing that weird attachment stuff. So it is the glue that's doing that. Threshold 0.1. I guess we could do weld as well, weld points. Does that have a breaking? Yeah, it does. Let's try weld instead. Might work better. I don't know. Yikes. Yeah, I don't know about this. It's kind of weird. It's not what I would have expected it to do. The whole thing is weird, the way it's behaving. But yeah, this especially is pretty odd. I don't know what's going on there. Let's try it without the remesh and just see how it behaves. Because then we get nice, kind of clean edges. I don't know. It's going to be so slow, but it might, you know, it might help. I might ditch the rope just to try and speed some of this stuff up. And I could also potentially just delete, you know, some of these components. You know, we'll just work on the half that we're kind of first colliding on. Just to speed some of this stuff up. Okay. Oh, and get rid of that. Get rid of these guys as well. Alrighty. Yeah, sometimes it's good to just isolate a section just so that you can focus on that and not have to worry about the whole thing, and it runs faster, obviously. Crazy stretching. Oh, I mean, you can see it's still happening here. It's less over here. Hey Adam, how's it going? You made it. Welcome to my wonderful plywood box. You missed the rain before. It was quite loud in here. So, I mean, it's better with the unremeshed version, but it's still not great. Let's try. So yeah, that's the breaking threshold of the world, which is kind of doing that. The other thing we can try is this, where we don't use so much gravity. You can kind of take the gravity down. That's right. Here it is. You did miss the tour at the start. You can go back and have a look. Or I turned the camera around and showed you. It all in all its glory. 2.4 meter cube. Like this stuff, this super floppiness. I find in Vellum in general, it's quite hard to get away from that. So you can see when the gravity's basically, it's 1, so it doesn't sort of fall down anywhere near as much. So you don't get that pulling happening. I've also increased the break threshold there on the weld. So yeah, that's probably another reason why it's not pulling apart. Nice. Love a long breakfast. Doesn't look like we're getting any tearing from the ball now though. And I mean, really, probably we want to do some fracturing on this cloth just so that we can break it, in specific areas, which we can do. I mean, it's bothering me, this cloth. What to do. The other thing you could try with the remesh, which is something that might help. If we put a connectivity node down, that's going to generate a class attribute for each set of connected geometry. You can see here, got it. If I then run, and actually I'll make it a primitive. If I then run a for each loop, for each connected piece actually will generate a connectivity node as well, so maybe I'll just use that one. You can see it does the same thing, primitive. And then in the for each loop, I will be looking at each one of my bits of cloth. And I might just go back and in my out fabric here, I'm going to exclude these pieces because I don't want these guys showing up in here anymore. So I'm going to put a blast down, or actually I'll put a split down so that I have them still. And I'm going to split, group, parts maybe? No. Let's see. Randomly it's in fabric A. Let's see if it's in also crates. There we go. It's in crates as well. So I'll just get rid of that because I don't really want that coming through. Let's go back to my constraint sim. Wrong one. Reverse. Invert. There we go. Okay. Now in here. Reset. There we go. So each panel now is going to come through inside this for each loop, and I can remesh them independently of each other. And that might generate nicer stuff happening on the edges between each panel because they're being remeshed independently of each other. Don't know. Worth trying. Now I can turn off this. That. And let's have a look at that. This is the, the R&D phase of any project where you're trying to figure this stuff out and, figure out why stuff isn't working and just trying to figure out the setup. I don't know what is going on with this crazy stuff. I mean, that stuff makes me just think, well, maybe I'll change my scale and perhaps the scale increase might make things slightly more stable. Because that's pretty wacky, you know, what's going on here with this stuff. I mean, I don't have strong gravity, so I could put that back up to -9.8 and just see what I get. But still, like, I'm getting this activity happening, which is really bonkers. And I don't want that. So maybe try scaling up. Oh, I did turn it down. Is that any better? I turned it down because it was raining so much. And the roof of this building that I'm in, my shed, is metal. So it was quite loud. Is that any better? I can talk louder. So what am I doing? What am I doing? Transform. I'm going to transform up by 10. Much larger now. You can see, yeah, what we're around 100 meters across. So let's middle click. We can see the size of this thing, size 80. Alright, yeah, it's just my level. I turned it way down while it was pouring because I thought it would be too loud. Sorry. Thanks for letting me know. So, yeah, now we're at 10. Now, what that means is that, you know, in our welds and things, our distances may need to be adjusted, because if we were doing them based on max distance, that might need to be changed. Like the attach, for example, or the attach is attaching to this tiny building, so we need to scale that up as well. So everything has to come up to the same scale. And now, whoops. Now our attach should work again, but you can see this has a really small distance, so we might just need to increase that by 10 as well. There we go, 0.2. So let's see our bull as well, you know, needs to come up by 10 if we're using him. Let's see what happens with this. Still got activity there. A lot of activity, which is just bizarre. But, you know, it's probably being caused by just the mesh being kind of not that great. But now at least we can see the bull is tearing off a panel. And that looks good. That's kind of what I was hoping to see. Yeah, I've got some other problems now with stuff just falling off and all this crazy business going on. Let's go inside, and I'm going to put a pop drag down. See if I can get this stuff to behave a little better. Still moving around like crazy. So now I'm going to force this to comply. I'm going to put down a... I think I can do it with this wrapped up one. Let's try. I'm going to put down a Sop Solver. And I'm going to wire that in there. And then inside of here, you can see I'm not seeing it. So I don't know if maybe I can't do that with this in here. So what I want to do essentially is set the mass to this. You can see here, coming out of the vellum cloth, we get a mass attribute. If you set mass to 0, so at mass equals 0, let's just get rid of that for a second. So if you set mass to 0, you should see nothing happen. It essentially disables the cloth. You can see it doesn't collide, doesn't do anything. Mass at 0 just will completely stop everything from working. So my idea, and I'm going to unlock this layout editing of contents. So instead of, so now I've got to go and find my simulation, which is here. Give it a nice bright color to see it. So instead of inside this forces subnet, which is where it takes you in the sim that's here, I'm going to wire in, I think, over here. Let's see, particle forces, post solve. Yeah, I think with the post solve, I'm going to put a Sop Solver and merge it with my vellum source. And there we go. Now I can see my geometry. That's what I wanted to see. So in here, if I middle click, you can see here's my mass somewhere there. And if I look at my geometry spreadsheet, it's going to be 0, wherever it is. Hide all. Show mass. There it is there, 0. Now, I'm going to object merge my buffalo. Keep wanting to say bull. My buffalo. Well, there it is. He's tiny again, so let's make sure that we transform out. Or actually, what I might do is just go all the way back out here. I'm going to create a null for this one. Call this one out. Buffalo collision. And go back in here. Then I can just do this. Dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash out buffalo collision. So it's just looking layers up. And then I can use this to attribute transfer, my old friend attribute transfer, do pretty much every single effect with, from, now Sop Solvers are weird, you can see that's displaying a small bison there, so it's kind of baked into the memory, so I'll just jump out, maybe like turn my solver on and off, then come back in, there we go, so there's my cloth again, here's my giant buffalo. Attribute transfer. So I'm going to attribute transfer, let's go back here and have a look at what the mass I was generated was. So it's actually varying mass. And that could be a problem with the sim in general, is maybe the varying mass is creating problems, but 0.1-ish looks like a kind of good value. So we'll set it to 0, and then on the buffalo, I'm going to put a wrangle and say at mass equals 0.1. And then I'm going to transfer that mass value onto my cloth. I'm also going to transfer color so I can see it. So I'm going to make that red and black. And so 10 is quite large, it's 10 meters, but our thing's scaled up now, so let's just see what happens. So we can run it inside here. That rain's coming back. I don't know if you can hear it. We should see this go red at some point. Maybe. But it's not going red, which is whatever. Ooh. You know why it's not going red? Because I have this here, setting it to black every frame. So, can you hear that rain? I'm going to pull my mic down again. Maybe I can do this. Bring my mic closer. So I'm going to get rid of the color out of here, and I'm going to put it here, so that it's... Oh, cool. Oh, that's good. So I'm going to put the color here, so that it sets it on the outside only. The problem with doing it inside the Sop Solver is that basically if I put it there, every frame, it's just setting it to black again, so you never actually see that red come through. I don't know if that makes sense, but I always do it and then realize. So we should see it go red now. Maybe? Did I put that black back there? No, I didn't. I don't know why it's... Oh, you know what? You know why? Because I'm a fool. Forgot to put CD in there. There we go. Alright, let's try it one more time. We should see it like around here where the ball gets here. We should start to see that go red. Oh, there we go. Hooray! And because it's transferring that mass, it's like it's activating the cloth at that point. So you can see it's only, you know, all this other stuff is deactivated. It makes for a faster sim too, because you can basically say, okay, I'm not going to do anything with this cloth. I'm just going to do this stuff And you can see as it gets closer to this side, it then activates this cloth as well. So let's have a look when it starts to activate. It's pretty, you know, 10, that's 10 meters. So it's, yeah, because we've scaled it up, it's a little bit larger now. So you can also make that a blend so that it blends those values on. That might be problematic because it's actually creating low mass values in some parts, and that might create some weird stuff happening. But yeah, you could try it. Have a little bit of a bleed. Let's go 15 and 5 and see what that looks like. So, you know, when your sim is not behaving and you really want it to behave, then you just force it, basically. You just do these things like activation type stuff. It's the same with rigid bodies. This, I don't know what is going on with this guy. Like, why he's flopping around so much. And this stuff just tearing up and going bananas. Really weird. It may be, like, I did set really stupidly high values here. And here's where it calculates the varying mass. So yeah, I don't know. But like this really high bend, maybe that is, you know, maybe I should just revert to defaults here and just leave that as. No, I mean, you know, it's probably a good idea to work with activation, you know, in general. But yeah, I mean, usually I will try and get a good sim happening just using constraints. And then, I mean, quite often we will use activation just because the behavior that we require is just going to be, you know, so timed and so specific that activation is often, you know, the only way to go. But I do like to try and get, you know, a good simulation, a stable sim happening without it, if possible. Because it, you know, it's a bit more organic and things can move, you know, away from the main action that might look cool. Seeing a lot of stretching happening here. I think that's just caught there. And it's not letting go. But you can see, like, I probably don't need it to spread up into the roof, but, you know, it's looking pretty cool. Now, the other thing with a scaled up sim like this is gravity sometimes can feel a little bit low. So, you know, potentially upping the gravity by 10 as well can help. Just make it feel kind of the right size. Yeah, wouldn't that be good? We could, like, you could potentially do that, like, at a certain point, convert the Buffalo into a Vellum sim as well, and have the thing just, like, fling him back into the sky. So that's not too bad, you know? It's better than what we were getting. So the scale up maybe helped. But certainly the mass transfer stuff has helped. And we could try, like, and figure out ways of just constraining it to the lower parts and just leave the top part. But maybe we want to do a full thing where the whole kind of market stall collapses as well. I mean, that would be an interesting thing to try and get going, is to have this cloth actually pull this piece out at a certain point. That would be, you know, it would be tricky to get going. The other thing that we could do is break this stuff a bit. So I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called edge fracture. And we could do that inside the for each loop. So edge fracture in here. And this actually uses a find shortest path node. That's not really a good one to look at. This uses a find shortest path node inside here to generate fractures along the edges that exist there. So if we put an exploder view down now, you can see that it's broken it up into a whole bunch of parts. Now that does require the weld in there, because otherwise everything will just fall apart. But now what we'll see is that as the bull tears this stuff through, we've got that break threshold on there, and well, the break threshold's pretty low, so you can see that's just fracturing into a million pieces. So let's go and change that. What have we got? We've got stretch stress. We could do stretch distance instead. So it's not a stress, but an actual distance value that it has to meet before it can tear. You can see now it's not tearing straight away. Well, it is in parts, but it's giving it a little bit more time. But actually, 0.1, you know, our scale is really big, so I don't know, maybe 1 is a better threshold value. Let's see what happens. Hopefully we'll get some tearing. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. So that can be a good way to really stop that, you know, just infinite stretching of things going on as well. We're still getting it a little bit, but you can see it's tearing now. It's pulling off, which is great. A little one there that's just getting caught. But that now looks, you know, a bit more realistic as well. We've got this nice, like, torn to shreds side happening. And then on this side as well, he'll rip that apart. Yeah, and you can see, like, it was just, I didn't even change that node at all. I just added it. I had the weld in there, welding the sections together already. So, really, you know, it's just kind of plugged in and worked, which is really cool. He's got the fabric over his eyes, which is great. You can just continue to tear up the market because he can't see. All right, so that took ages, but it's getting there. Now finally, you know, we have to remember that we scaled this up, so we're going to want to scale it back down afterwards. So the way that I would do that is to take my original scale, copy the parameter, and then paste relative reference. Afterwards, that's going to scale it up by 10, but if I turn on invert transformation, it brings it back down to the original scale. So if I compare my object merge, there we go. And that one, same position. So we've got our cloth. You know, it's kind of working. Could be better, but the setup is, you know, is working. Hey, thanks, Kevin. So we've got our cloth. So perhaps we should leave that as just vellum. I'm not going to rename it now because I'll lose my cache. It's annoying that it does that, but I'm going to create a new geometry container, and we've got what? We've got 24 minutes. Let's create an Rbd setup as well. So let's go Rbd constraint and sim. I'll rename that one later. Object merge. I'm going to grab, here we go. I'm going to grab crates. You can actually have multiple merges in here, but because I like to process things separately, yeah, I like to have all my object merges separate so that I can actually see just what I'm dealing with. Barrels. So yeah, I mean the crates are really the first thing that is going to hit. And we've already seen, when I plug that into just a standard Rbd bullet solver with the ground plane on, they just fall down and look nice. So we don't necessarily need to fracture them. Now let's bring in our buffalo as well, and we could take the same buffalo collision from constraint and sim, because actually Rbd sims are also, you know, good at the 10 times scale. So let's do the same thing. We'll go 10 times. Our buffalo is already scaled up. There we go. We'll plug him into the collision geometry side. There he is there. Collisions. Bullet object collisions. Convex hull. Let's weird it displays it like that. The collision representation is probably not like that at all, but oh well. We also want this to be a deforming static, because it is a deforming object. Let's see. So you can see these are collapsing already, but hopefully... Kablamo! Nice. So, the easy way to hold these together, we could do a similar activation type stuff with bullet, but the easy way would just be to create a constraint relationship. So let's do Rbd Constraint Properties. What I'll do here is actually do a connect adjacent pieces node. When you fracture, you get a, like if you did a Voronoi fracture on these, for example, you get a little constraint output. But because we're not fracturing at this stage, I'm going to use the connect adjacent pieces. Oh, first off, I'm going to put a name on these. So I'll use an assemble to create a name attribute. Let's call it crates. That creates a name. From there, I can connect adjacent pieces. So this will connect differently named objects together. And there's your glue constraint, essentially. Now this requires attributes. I usually create them in a wrangle, but you can also use a constraint properties node, Rbd constraint properties. And you can run the geometry in one side, the constraint in another. And this will create the constraint name and strength and all that kind of business. And then you just basically plug these in like that. You can also plug in your proxy geometry if you're using that workflow, but I'm not. So now you can see those in there. When I look at my bullet solver, I've got under constraints, glue, and it's just going to take the values that are set here on this node. So let's see. You can actually see it breaking, but some of them are staying together. You can see how some broke, some of them disappeared, those primitives, some of them are staying together. So what that tells me is that I need my strength upped, and then hopefully they won't break. You can see they're holding together a lot better now. And then as soon as he crashes through, then they start to break. The other type of constraint that you could run is like if we copy this and choose the other option, which is the adjacent pieces from points, you can see how that gives you much smaller connections. And this one is actually connecting like nearby points of nearby objects. So it won't create a connection between itself, but you know, like that point to that point, for example, it might create a connection. And that's more like a nail, kind of, you know, in reality, if these were all nailed together, this would be the type of constraint. And you can take that radius right down. You can see I'm still getting them if I turn my point display on. Take that radius right down to create, you know, far less, and that maybe more so like a couple of nails holding these boxes together. That would go into a constraint properties again, but this time I'm going to choose constraint type soft or hard constraint. Let's try soft constraint. I'll set the stiffness really high though, so it is a bit like a hard constraint. Soft constraints tend to have rotation and, you know, a bit more flexibility than the hard constraints. So you can see we've got position and rotation. We can constrain both of those things, or we could constrain just one or the other. Let's try both. We could have both of these as well. We could have glue and this one running together. So now we've got soft constraints. You've also got the ability, and this is on by default, breaking thresholds with the soft and hard constraints so that it will break if it stretches beyond a certain distance. Let's turn it off for starters and just see what it looks like. Boom! Nice. The other thing to remember with soft constraints is, and hard constraints, they need a length attribute, rest length, which tells them what their original length is. If you don't have that, it assumes it's 1, and a meter, you know, rest length is really big, so it explodes. Make sure you turn that on. What you'll see is they'll start to collapse, but hopefully when this gets hit, we'll see them we'll see bits sort of stay together, because they're actually, see how that crate is like rolling together? Because it's been kind of nailed. That's right, yeah. Buffalo incoming command. The gunpowder stall at the market. So maybe, we had a lot of pieces falling off there. But I like this. These crates staying together is really cool. Let's just increase the search radius so that we get many more connections. And then we might get less pieces falling off. You can see they're moving a little bit. They're kind of wobbling. But no pieces are falling off, which is good. And then when he hits, they're all just going to kind of deform together, hopefully. There we go. So that's cool. It's cool. We want to change that, but that's kind of cool. And you may even see some flexibility with these. Although the stiffness I set was really high, so maybe we'll revert to defaults on that. And we might see some floppy crates. You can see these ones maybe is bowing a little bit. Let's see what happens when he hits it. See that deformation that's happening now? Where he's hit it and it's allowing the soft constraint with the low stiffness is allowing it to kind of deform a little bit. And he's actually sort of running into the crate now and pushing it rather than it staying really rigid. And here, yeah, you can see those distances that they're allowed to stretch now when the stiffness is low. So at that point, that is when you would break it. So you would turn on the braking now so that it's allowed to, you don't want it to stretch too much, so you could use distance. You got a whole bunch of options. You could turn on variance so that some will break earlier, some will break later. Let's see what a distance of 1 gives. And yeah, there's a little bit of settling going on there, so maybe the glue as well might just help keep everything rigid until the point of impact. So let's see now. Should hopefully see some, yeah, you can see them breaking now. Those constraints aren't being connected, and we get this kind of cool feeling of stuff being nailed together but broken, and it, it just feels a lot more natural. It's not just bits of wood flying everywhere. Parts that are constrained together are kind of staying a little bit stuck together, and you can see him just kind of tearing that box apart. Do they retract if they don't break? They are always trying to. That's what the stiffness is basically, like how quickly it's going to try and return to its original length. So yeah, they're always trying to return to that, and that's why they, it stays as a box instead of just slowly unfolding. So there we go. You can see we've got some nice panels kind of stuck together, which is cool. And that's a great thing about RBDs. You just get that kind of classic motion of things. The disc kind of spinning on its end, which is really cool. And at 10 times scale, things tend to behave a lot more stable. You will get much more stable behavior. But that's, I really like that. Seeing that disc spin around like that, it's cool. The other thing is, gravity. You can up it as well to maybe the gravity on these is a little bit, makes them feel a bit floaty and a bit low at 10 times scale. So going up that under the forces. Yeah, I guess. I don't know if there's like a point where it just sort of stayed. I guess that would be plastic deformation if it stayed like that. Yeah, potentially if you let it run enough, it might just depend on like the impact force that breaks it apart and then pulls it back together. Or maybe like over time you increase the stiffness so that it it's floppy at the start, so it goes and then the stiffness goes up and springs it back together. Yeah, worth playing with. I'm sure you could engineer it to happen even if it didn't by default. I'm sure you could engineer it by manipulating attributes. So there you go. You can see, you know, with the slightly higher gravity, feel the speed of things falling feels a bit, you know, feels a bit more realistic. It's a bit less floaty. We're not getting as much kind of impact happening. But there's always physical parameters that you can play with to try and, you know, like if I set the bounce to 1 instead of 0.25, reset. Things might bounce around a little bit too much, but you may see things just flying off now. I don't know, but you can play around with the physical parameters to try and, well, there we go, something weird going on there. But yeah, play around with those physical parameters to try and get, you know, more stuff kind of exploding out. I'll set that back to 0.25. You could also try, you know, we've got the trail on the buffalo there. If I put another one down, let's try like compute velocity. Let's amp up the scale to 10. I can't remember if this works with RBDs, but it might. Let's see. So instead of the trail being correct velocity for that buffalo, I've amped it up by 10. Maybe that will impart like a much larger force. I know this definitely works for like flip, but RBDs, don't know. Might not. I have a feeling the Rbd solver like recalculates its own velocity for collision objects anyway, so yeah, it might not impart that point velocity the way other solvers do. Anyway, I mean, this is, you know, it's kind of looking realistic. It's just not, you know, it's not super exciting. I guess, you know, our break threshold on our constraints could certainly come down, and that will mean more braking. You could also engineer it, you know, like I was saying, basically anything, you know, you can control, but you could put a force into these things at a certain moment, like so they all just explode. Or another collider, which is kind of an invisible thing that's just like a sphere scaling up over time to make these things kind of fly out. Might be interesting. Now you can see that collapsing that's happening. If I put this constraint in there as well, so here I'm going to wire this in and plug that through. Oh, let's see, what am I going to do? Maybe I can merge those two together. Don't know if that will work. Let's see. Mismatch of attributes. Blah blah blah. Hopefully it still works. Let's see. Well, the glue looks like the glue's working. What is my video card? It's a RTX 2070 Super. It's not amazing, but this is not using the graphics card at all. Anything that I'm doing here. Yeah, it's an RTX 2070 Super. It's okay, you know. It was kind of, at the time that I bought it, it was sort of like the second best performing card for price. You know, I look at the cost ratio, and so I went for like not the top one, but the second best one at the time. It's dropped down the list now a little bit, but it's okay, you know, it does the job. I don't do like tons of real-time stuff, and a lot of stuff in Houdini does not utilize the graphics card. When I get into rendering in Redshift, then it does, but and some OpenCL stuff with simulations, but a lot of stuff in Houdini really is, you know, CPU based, so you are kind of, I would preference having better CPU. Would you ever increase the time step on the Rbd sim? Do you mean like the time scale? Or on the .NET, the time step here, which is, you know, you can see that that's a factor of the time scale divided by the substeps times the frames per second. Yeah, timescale. I tend not to mess with timescale in Bullet. Yeah, I mean, you could. I just, yeah, I tend not to. Let's see. I don't know if on the Bullet Solver, which is, you know, usually I'll set things up this way. Yeah, timescale. Yeah, no, I don't really. I don't know. That's not to say that you couldn't. It's just I don't ever use it. Yeah, I don't know. I try to remove as many variables as possible, I guess. So, yeah, messing with that stuff, it's just another thing that you have to kind of deal with. But, yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't, potentially. This glue is breaking like crazy. Let's have a look at the constraints. Glue, strength, breaking thresholds. Why are you breaking so much? Oh, there we go, it's a little bit better. Because the scale's big as well, you need to kind of change your thresholds and the glue strength. The forces are amplified, so the glue strength needs to be much greater. Maybe the search distance on this guy, just take down, or the search points as well will probably reduce. I don't know, something like that. Just I want to get stuff exploding a little more. Maybe the distance threshold. There we go. A few more pieces. The other thing you can do, like with a collision object, is yeah, you could peek that out and just make him like a kind of quite inflated version of himself. That might be pushing it a little much, but basically you'll just amplify, you know, you can see before these ones weren't getting knocked over, so it's kind of, you know, I was missing that stuff being sort of included in the simulation. So you can see now, you know, it's really making an impact. You got to be careful that, you know, because it is going to be kind of a bit ahead of the action now, so you got to be careful that it still kind of works. But you can see, like, yeah, you can see that sort of thing happening where maybe that's not great. So I probably went a bit far with that peak. But it can be a good way just to get a little more, you know, like even like that might be okay. Let's have a look at that. Quite often, especially with really small objects, you know, it's good to, yeah, it's good to, but you can see, yeah, that one still doesn't. So the thing that I was kind of talking about with the imparting a velocity at a certain time is, maybe in here in the force output, you could put like a pop wrangle. And you could say, I don't know, let's just say if, figure out what time that hits first. Template that, have a look at this. So he's hitting around 23, let's say 23, 25, let's go. If at frame equals 25, v at v plus equals 0, 10, 0. So this is just going to add an upward velocity at frame 25. So when frame equals the value of 25, I'm going to add 10 to the velocity in y. Let's see if it works. We should see things jump up a little bit. I mean, 10 might not be enough at this scale, but let's see. There we go. You see them just jump a tiny bit. So let's crank that up. Go crazy. And I mean, this is just a simplified example, but you know, you get the idea. Boom! Well, that's quite an impact. So, you know, you want to... That's right. You want to make that something. You don't want it to just be like a straight up. You could do it. You could do it based on noise, or you could do it based on like a transfer. I would probably try and do this in a Sop Solver. And again, I don't know if you can do that in here, but let's try Sop Solver. Okay, we'll crack it open again, allow it in contents. There's our .NET, it's already read. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on over here. But basically, again, in the post solve. Hey, no worries, Audrey. Thanks for reminding me of the time. I'm getting carried away. Thanks for joining me. So I'm going to put a Sop Solver here. This will be the last thing that I do. And, ooh, dop geometry not coming in. Geometry. Ah, it's bringing in my collision object. That's interesting. Whoa. Yeah, see, these, the collision object is a, These wrapped up ones can be a little problematic when when you want to do really custom stuff. See, this is giving me the collision object because it's the first pack geometry that comes in here. It's not giving me the boxes, which is what I wanted. Might have to abandon this and set it up properly. So I guess the other thing that you could do is maybe, on your geometry here, you could create, I might do it with a VOP. So you could do something like this where you just, I don't know, turbulent noise, pos into P, out that into V. Let's create a marker for velocity. Original Perlin, 3D noise, add a constant, let's see, what am I going to do? Add a constant vector, 3 flats vector, so 10. Oh, what am I doing? I could just use a point velocity node. It's kind of going to give me the same effect. So here, I can just add velocity, like, I could add 100 there. Maybe 20. Then conical noise I could turn on and spread that out. So you can see it kind of gives me, maybe if I turn that off, there we go. It gives me that ability, there we go, so don't have that on. It gives me that ability to create like a radial kind of velocity. And then I can add curl noise. Swirl size, make that really large. Something like that. And then I can bring a null out here and say out V. I could even pack that stuff up. Pack. There we go. Out V. So that then it's just a velocity per piece, because we created this name here inside of Rbd Bullet Solver. It's packing them anyway, so let's just do that and see if we can reference that inside. And I'm just going to go match current definition so we're not dealing with the other stuff. Here's our pop wrangle. What we could do is under inputs, input to SOP. Go and find that, out V. And then under here, instead of doing VFV plus equals whatever, we could do VFV plus equals 0.1 for the second input, which is reading off of here. V attribute, and we're going to match the point numbers. Hopefully they match, because we pack them. We're packing them separately. I don't know. Let's see. See what happens. Let's see our markers. 25. Boom. I don't know if that did anything. You know, we're seeing that from the bull, but I'm seeing a change there on these outliers. So maybe the amount just isn't enough. We could put a multiplier in here. Let's go times 50. Just really crank that up. There we go. All right. So, you know, this is the thing. Once you set up your simulation and you establish the look, and then you you know, and then you try and just force it to do what you want. I mean, that's ridiculous, but it's also pretty cool. And, you know, then it's just a matter of coming back over here and going, okay, so maybe I'll add a little bit of directionality to that. So we got negative X, maybe a little positive Z as well. Oh, Z, that way. And maybe the scale of the noise can kind of come down or something. That's right. I like that. Military grade buffalo. Blammo. Let's see what this looks like. And I did crank it up by 50, so yeah, maybe that's a little bit of overkill. But you can kind of, you know, you want to direct that stuff to. Whoa. Okay, so let's go in here. Let's just do times 10. And maybe you want to do it like based on the centroid or something, so it's like from the center outwards, and it looks a little, you know, a little bit more radial or something. Looks like I'm getting some. I don't know what's going on there. It looks like it's going the opposite way of what I expected, but I don't know why. Negative 10, positive. VFX plus. Maybe this multiplier is kind of screwing things. I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. I think I was hoping to get the two things together today, but I think this is a good start. I don't know why this is kind of like looks like my viewport's broken or something, displaying multiple versions of the boxes. Oh, there we go. I think this is a good start. You know, we've got this happening. We've got the constraint and sim happening from the cloth. Let's turn the scale off. So the goal is to, there we go. So you can see those two things working together now, and that's great. So the goal is to kind of just keep building this out and to, you know, get all of those elements in there and make sure they all kind of work. The crates probably could just be in the vellum as a collision now, so that we don't get this sort of stuff happening. You don't want that, you know, kind of going through. But we don't need to simulate them together. You know, the rigid bodies are just going to affect the cloth, so that's fine. But yeah, you know, like you can imagine once I've got all the elements in there, it will look quite cool. And then finally, you know, we'll be rendering it out, and it's got the textures on there, so it should look pretty sweet. All right, well, we're out of time. I'll get out of here before the storm hits again, and I can't hear myself. But thanks for joining me. I hope you guys are doing well. Sorry I took such a big break. I'll definitely be back next week. Fingers crossed. And yeah, I'll probably just keep going with this and see where I can take it. And then hopefully we can get something rendered out and see what it looks like. But yeah, thanks guys. Have a good week. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, catch you guys next week. Time to watch the first half. Yeah, cool. All right. Catch you later, guys. No worries.